What's up, you guys? Coming up, we got a conversation with Christopher Sauer, a self-made entrepreneur, software developer, and polymath who's passionate about building his skills in a wide range of areas through dedicated practice and building his media business. Welcome to the Squad Pod. To support it, hit the like button, subscribe to see more. And now, without further ado, here's Christopher Sauer. So you made this mask? Are you,
Okay,
this is
so
like a thespian thing that you're doing or what?
no, I made this full costume. It's kind of a character that I made for myself. And so imagine like people that go to anime cons and they have a character out there that they love and they want to reproduce that. So they create like their own costumes for it. They'll go really elaborate sometimes and create like become this character. Well, on the flip side, this is part of the furry fandom. Have you heard of it before?
I'm not familiar.
Oh, all right.
Oh
You
no.
are about to become a little familiar. So
Okay,
on the flip side, the furry
let's do it.
fandom's a lot of people who create their own characters. And sometimes people create this character to embody parts of their personality that they don't express well. So they might say, like, this is a character that, like, this is who I wish I could be, essentially. And then other people like myself, use it as a creative outlet to kind of like I don't really distinguish much between the character and me as far as like personalities go and such, but the character's almost like a larger than life version of the same personalities. But yeah, so I will introduce you to Gem.
Oh my gosh.
Let's see. Can you there we go. Can you still hear me? There we
I
go.
can. That looks
Excellent. Okay,
awesome.
good. So this is I actually made a full suit for this. I didn't get out like the hand paws. I've got a tail, I've got a body. I actually made pants out of fur for this. But this is mine. It's a black and blue wolf. I go by so even in like the world, I go by either Christopher or Jem Kagawa, and it's kind of like this online persona that I've kind of created for myself. And they're just like really for myself, they're one and the same.
Right, it's just your alter ego or maybe parts of you that you don't really express, or maybe they're more fun to express with the costume on.
Yeah, exactly. So with
I feel
this,
that.
this is kind of a way, you know what I find? Like, yes, and there's a few things that you might be a little nervous to express. So for example, I love dancing. I dance a lot better when I'm wearing this costume.
Yeah.
Do I actually dance better? Probably not, but I go for it. Like it's easier to
Yeah.
go for it when you don't have when you've got some kind of like it kind of it's like a yeah, I'm gonna take this off a moment. There we go. I might have to fix my hair
I love
here.
it.
But
Dude, the
it's
detail on that
almost
thing is
like
just it's incredible.
yeah, thank you. It's almost like alcohol as a social lubricant. Like it's
Mhm.
just a layer between you and the embarrassment or judgment from other people that just makes it easier to express yourself or do the things that you'd prefer to do. And then yeah, on the sewing side, like I hand sewed the entire outfit. That's V1 of the head. But I've also got like a version 2 of the arms and the paws and the tail, the things that took me 60 hours to make. It's even got fans inside of it. There's battery packs in the cheeks,
Wait,
so I could turn those on.
that's incredible. 60 hours. So this is the stitching. Like it seems like you almost took apart a bunch of other things to gather the materials and then
I actually
like
have a huge container of this like blue foam, black foam. I've got pink that goes inside the mouth for like the tongue. I've got this like actually the only part of the entire outfit that I had someone else make was the nose, and it's made of like a silica mold. Uh, I didn't do that part, but yeah, I've got these parts, and then underneath, I actually made it out of this like green, like foam, like mattress foam, like for
okay.
like couches and stuff. And I've got like vents in the back of it. I don't know if you can see that very well, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And then in the ears up here, there's more
Whoa.
vents, and there's fans that stick right out the top.
Dude, I
So
had no idea the engineering that went into this. This is incredible.
yeah,
You had to like outsource this to several different people and uh that's awesome. 60 hours.
60
And
hours
so
is the
this
head. The rest of the outfit took 40. The
Dude,
head's the most complex part, but really reconnect with people through their eyes and their faces. And so I really wanted to get those details the most right because that's where people are going to connect with me most. If I, if I fudge some of like the side of my hip is like a little boring, that's fine. Like no one's gonna they won't look at it as like, ooh, that's a cool detail, but they're not gonna miss the connection, the personal connection with me.
yeah, that's important for sure. I mean, first of all, I don't think anybody is going to be looking at the whole get up and being like, "Oh, wow, you really could have put another hour into that." It's like, dude, the I really kind of want to see the whole outfit now. This is incredible. Um, but honestly, it doesn't surprise me at all that you would go through all of that to build something. Because I mean, look at the setup that you've got here. And Okay, dude, the video that you sent me with the Twitter video, honestly, I think I rolled that back maybe like 3 or 4 times. That was a vibe. That was a vibe and a half. And like one of the first comments was, "Oh, this is kind of like, oh, not what I was expecting." When I saw that video, I was like, I was vibing to it. I was like, "Man, this
That's
is awesome."
you know what? That is fantastic. I actually really love that comment because it's a reminder to me that you have to choose audiences. Some of the best content out there is targeted at an audience. That person, I actually know the person that commented that. We used to work together at an old job, and it doesn't surprise me that that was not the kind like that's an audio visual overload. It is, it's going for the rave scene kind of thing. Lots of lighting, lots of music and kind of like you just let's get as much into our senses as we can and have let's get going and he's not as much like that and that is perfectly fine. I think so I'll bring up I got this DJ controller and it's my first like actual DJ controller and this is the one
Yeah.
I was using last night. It's my first
Uh-huh.
DJ controller since the 90s. I had like a
Oh, wow.
$20 like kids version of the controller and it had like 4 buttons and a couple very plasticky turntables. But it was a lot of fun. And then I just use virtual software for everything I've done the past like 20 years until about a couple weeks ago. So it's been lots of fun getting into that. And then on the other side, this is something I actually do because I do some stage production work. But I've got something called a Wolf Mix here, and it's a lighting board, so I can control like all of my lighting back here. I can do all kinds of effects with it, and
Oh, look at that.
change things off of this. You can do lots of programming with it. I can even fire off fog from here. So you can see like the
No.
light on the back of my head. I got
Yeah.
probably hear it there. So I've got like a fog machine
Oh,
going
that's sick.
and like
Whoa.
lasers. If you've ever seen lasers in fog, I could sit here. I can see, I don't know if you can see it, but the fog is kind of like slowly billowing up in the air here. It's kind of gorgeous. But I could sit
No,
for, I
it's
feel
yeah,
like I
it's
could just
definitely
sit and
noticeable.
listen to music and stare at lasers for hours. And it is just, it's a mesmerizing experience. It's a lot of fun.
Dude, and that's one of the things that I really noticed about like that's maybe one of the things I liked so much about it. So a little tangent real quick. There's this place here in Austin. It's this huge kind of warehouse. It's called the Capitol Factory. And it's like literally a giant warehouse, and the inside is just completely gutted, except for this. There's like a stage in the back, and then there's kind of like this walkway up top. So kind of like a second floor kind of situation. And I was there not too long ago. I think it was back in May actually for some DJ. Friend was like, "Hey, come out to the show." I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And we go out there, and like the DJ, and the music was great, the lights were great, the vibe was just incredible. But the DJ was just had this vibe where I guess he had just done it too many times, or he was just too cool for school, and he like wasn't even bobbing his head to the music. He was just kind of doing it. And maybe that's somebody's vibe, or maybe that other people like this. The music was good, though his attitude kind of took away from the experience.
Mhm.
And honestly, I left. I was like, this is honestly not a good show. Like, for some reason, his attitude didn't kind of pull me in. And that was exactly the opposite when I was watching your video, because you were kind of bopping your head, and there was a point where you kind of like the beat dropped, and like you like smiled, and it was so fun to watch. And it really was just a good time, just to kind of, it felt like I was there with you and you were genuinely rocking with it. And it just, but yeah, what's up?
You know, that's a really awesome comment. There's something about last night's stream that was really good for me. That was actually like lights and music are practically therapy for me. I absolutely love those combos. And my car got stolen about 10 days ago, and it has been like there's been so much just time investment, extra PTO, trying to handle, rentals, insurance, getting the car back, and then the windows smashed and it smells like smoke and various drugs. And it's like now I got to figure out how to get it cleaned and all that kind of stuff. And, what I find,
Oh man.
sorry, something turned off. I wasn't sure which light. What I find is that, so that was a lot of like I need some time for me. And so this night's stream, I'm not going to do a ton of talking with people. What I'm going to do is something that I've always really wanted to do, and that's just run a DJ stream. Like I'm just going to play some beats, have a good time. I'll say hi to people every now and then when they pop in the chat, but for the most part I might just like I've got like these overlays like here, let me throw like so there are all kinds of like Twitch redeems and stuff, and someone might throw like a woo across the
Oh,
screen.
whoa.
And
I'm just now
we got
noticing your wow, dude, your AV skills are just incredible. I love them.
so
I'm
someone
just now
might throw a
noticing this
woo and I'll
folder you've
just be
got.
like, yeah, but not say anything, just respond to the
Yeah,
woo, but keep going.
yeah.
And that was a really good stream for me. So that I think that vibe comes across. And there's
So
a
this is on
I
your
uh-huh. Yeah.
this is on your YouTube channel? I didn't know that you were so active online.
I actually so I there's going to be at some point today a story of my media business on the side and how I grew
Okay.
that. And I think it's a really cool one because it is a side business that I kicked off with like $2,500. Actually, I kicked off long before I spent anything.
That's a lot of money.
And well, that
Dude,
was after a year that
right.
I
See, I was about
invested
to
that
say.
to bring it to the next level. And now it's built itself to a point where I've got I don't know, 25, $30,000 of gear, and it's all built from the business ground up. And this is as a side business over the past, I'd say 5 years. But where I was going with that, I don't know where I was going with that right now. I had a reason. What did
Well,
you
you
say right
were
before?
I can't quite recall. I just wrote down media business because I'm very interested in hearing about this.
Mhm.
But it's interesting because when you said you spent, a few grand on it, I was actually kind of shocked because you're the type of person that, let's say you're going to run a marathon, like you're not going to go buy some $800 pair of shoes. Like first you're going to buy like the $15, I don't know, like Asics or I don't know, running
Even
shoes.
even more, even better. And you are absolutely right about that. I'm going to start by running in whatever shoes I have. Like I will just fast walk in sandals if I have to, you know. Tell me, am I cutting out? I'm getting a little cut out over here, and it might just be a loose cable.
I think that there is some cutout. It could be coming from me or from you. Am I cutting out or is it
Mm,
over on your side? I don't
no,
know.
you sound good. Oh, I see what it is. Give me just a moment.
You say I sound good, but what I think you meant to say is I sound absolutely phenomenal. Dude, what I gotta say is I went to the Apple store the other day and these bad boys, so my headphones, I was on not TikTok, but it's basically like a TikTok. It's YouTube's version of it. And I was scrolling along and this chick comes up and she's some attorney and she does these videos where people come up or she'll say like cool little life hacks like if your plane is 30 minutes late at the airport and it's also a Thursday and it's raining and your name is Karen, you can get like a full refund plus a 24-hour like free meal voucher or something. And so she'll go into all these and they're pretty entertaining actually. And one she had recently was one about the AirPods. So I've got the AirPods Pros, and apparently if these headphones were manufactured between like October of 2018 to 2020, there's like a ton of them have this weird defect where they start to make this extremely high pitched noise and it's like incessant. I mean, it's like and it sounds like you have tinnitus, so it's kind of crazy. And for I think probably about a year, I put up with this like just sound in my ear because I didn't think anything of it. I'm a big skateboarder, and so I'll go skating with these headphones on, which definitely not going to do. Well, I'll come back to that in just a second. And so I've dropped them thousands of times. I've probably run them over with my car. Like I treat my gear, or I don't treat it. I have a very high quality standard for my gear. And so most of the things that I have are Apple products because you can slam them around, you can balance them in interesting ways, and you can watch, they're just very versatile. And I went to the Apple store because I saw this lady on the video and she was saying, "Hey, you got these headphones, you can get them replaced." And I went in there, and the guy literally went back to the back, and about 30 minutes later, he comes out. He cleaned my case like spotlessly, and with it, two brand new headphones. And I was on a call today with somebody, and he was like, "Man, the quality of your headphones is like, did you get new headphones?" I was like, "Actually, I did. They're brand new, and they were free too." So it was just it was just perfect. Couldn't get anything better.
I love it. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're honestly the quality is very high. Yeah.
It should be better, and that's actually this needs to be. This is one of those microphones that you
Oh
like
my
eat.
God. You're
There
about
we
to start
go.
an ASMR channel, aren't you?
Actually, this is a way better ASMR mic, but the furnace is running right now. Well, I should say the AC, and it was picking that up from like 25 feet away. So this is a great mic to pick up every single sound. Not so great when I take it outside of the studio. So I'm in my main like basement space right now. It's kind of like a test area. And yeah, so but yes, you sound absolutely amazing. Love it.
Yes. Love it. Dude,
No, it
so the
is it
last
is
time that
really
you
clear.
showed me your studio, I think it was probably like last summer maybe. Um, I think it was quite a while ago. And you were kind of in the middle of a construction project. I think you showed me all your lights and how everything was kind of in a transition period. Um, and so now it looks like you're kind of like you're not in a transition period anymore. You've got your setup kind of uh,
Actually,
totally
this
done.
isn't my studio. This is the basement next to my studio. This is where I hold my parties, my raves, have neighbors over for like chili dogs and drinks and such. I had my birthday down here a month ago and built this space with all this lighting. And like I've got this rig up here with like all kinds of lights
Oh,
on it. There's a laser up there. There's extra like gobos that move and do cool stuff. I don't have it plugged in because the fan on it's loud. So if you're not playing loud music, an ear sore. But yeah, no. So yeah, so this is my yeah, this is just the basement area. It's our large basement. I'm in the middle of finishing this space. But yeah, the studio's over there, and it's beautiful. It's something that I dreamed of and kind of came up with the specs for how I wanted this space to look for, I guess, a couple years through trial and error, and this is going to be part of that media business story too.
well, it's actually quite interesting because you've reached such a height with your all of this gear and your studio setup and all of this stuff, which is kind of interesting because if like let's say that nobody knew that like this side of you, and they only saw you at work and maybe you never talked about it, and so they never heard about it. Like you would never know that you're arguably very enterprising in this sense. And so, like, how do you keep that separated? Or like you said, you built this over time. Like, how did you do this? Because to the blind eye, it's like none of this even exists. And so it seems like you have such a good kind of distinction between work and even personal life and like this crazy, not crazy. It's just frankly, it's kind of badass. I mean, I love it. Um,
Well,
how,
thank
how
you.
did
I
you
will
build
let you know
this?
a couple things with that. One, I built, we'll say, my first business in elementary school. It was a clubhouse for myself and my neighbors and my cousins. And I got the idea to charge people 25 cents a quarter per meeting. So every time we came and we met in the clubhouse, I would have candy that I bought for people, and dues were 25 cents. And of course, some of that was kept in for the clubhouse to build itself and build its own wealth. I think it might have made like $4, but at the
That's a
time
lot of
that was a
money
lot
when
of
you're a
fun.
kid, though.
I
Yeah.
know. So it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. And so I've had this entrepreneurial spirit. This I can do anything I set my mind to, and anything I want to do. And I tend to. I think that's part of like why tonight I had to switch microphones. Had some audio issue. This specific setup is one I've never run before. I love trying new things. Like everything's an experiment. Everything. Let's try something new. And that over time that leads to growing so much and building up like what you can do with things. One of the things I love about that though is this media business, the way I think one of the things, so I in college I had been repairing like families' computers through high school, and I started getting better and better with it. I had like my CCNA for Cisco networking side. I started getting into like desktop support and such as like a, you know, a student job. And I got to a point where I made enough money with it, starting helping people that I didn't even know at that point, that I had to file taxes for it. And so that's when I learned how do you file an LLC. Learned it was actually really easy to start one. The hard part is keeping it distinct from your personal assets. But when you're a college student, I mean, personal assets is student loans. So, I mean, it was fine to just run with it. um and so that was a really good, and so that one, like I wasted money from that business like no one's business. Like I bought vinyl banners and like magnets that go on the side of cars. And I ran it outside, like out of an apartment. Like that banner got used as a background for eBay like twice. But I created like several sets of business cards, and it was the let me experiment with what it's like to grow a business. Let me experiment with like throwing into it. Let me learn how to do taxes. Still to this day, my least favorite part. But well, doing taxes isn't my least favorite. I hire a CPA for that. Keeping track of everything for the CPA, it's my least
Yeah,
favorite
that's a whole
part.
skill, dude. That should absolutely be something that's like taught. Like how even like how to organize files. I'm not trying to well anyway, so basically you're doing your taxes and you're starting this business. It's interesting that you kind of have to, it's something that we all kind of have to do, is you have to kind of convince yourself that you're able to accomplish your dreams and accomplish your goals. And you kind of do that maybe through trial and error. Um and just by building it up, slowly over time.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm one of those homegrown business kind of people. I will tell you I love people, and I prefer to see what problems people have and solve them and in a sustainable way. So, yeah, you could say, well, why don't you just solve people's problems for free? I could do that. I volunteer for some conferences, but it's not as sustainable. You can only solve problems that are so big if you're not growing your ability to solve larger problems. So I will tell you, I am a fan of capitalism. Capitalism, especially in the in the uh, oh, why am I blanking on it?
Maybe kind of
Improving's huge on this.
bringing
Uh,
other people together, or kind
yeah,
of having
the
a larger
conscious
purpose
capitalism.
to, okay.
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of like the conscious capitalism part. Like, yes, we owe it to our stakeholders and to our own ability and our own desires to grow and to make profit, but we also owe it to the people around us to build others up as we do that. So don't grow at the expense of others.
Yeah, it's almost always better to do it like a bottom up approach. So like rather than kind of from top down, or I don't know what the top down approach would look like in this sense, but the bottom up approach would be like, let's say you have a few people that you're working with, and kind of helping them grow is maybe the fastest way to grow the business. Is if every single person's growing, independently, then the high tide kind of raises all ships. Like
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah, whenever you want to grow something, if you grow other people around you, then you'll graze. You'll grow with them. Graze. I don't know why we're grazing, but we're growing
Go.
with them.
Dude, so it's like the only thing, it's like such an important skill actually to bring other people along with you. So I was doing this experiment a while back. I was going through kind of a rough time, and so to do that, like to overcome that, I really had to. And a friend recently told me, uh she called it like a woman's walk or something, but it's when you're really depressed and you're so depressed that you just can't do anything, so you get up and just go interact with people, or you get out of your space and you just kind of go be social. And so this is what I would do: is I would just go walk around the neighborhood, and the more that I walked around, the more that I noticed there was trash like everywhere. And so I would go around, and eventually I started picking up trash, just walking around with a bag of trash and picking it up. And there was a route that I used to take, and it crossed by like this park. And one day I walked by this park, and it was like full of trash. I guess somebody had dumped like an entire like can, and it was just stuff was everywhere. I mean, it was crazy. And I was like sitting over there picking it up, and this woman stopped her truck and like waved me over and was like, "Hey, like first of all, it's amazing what you're doing. This is great. But you realize that this is going to come, like, the trash is going to be here again in like a week. And I was like, yeah, I know, but like, here's the situation, and I'm just kind of doing this for the community or whatever. And she was like, oh well, I appreciate it. And I never saw her again. And it wasn't, I think, maybe another like 3 or 4 times of doing that loop where I realized, like, she was completely right. Like, if you try to solve a big problem like that on your own, you're really not going to make any progress. It's like you're kind of, you can't swim, you can't keep yourself above water. And so you have to bring other people in. You have to bring other people in. And if you're going to start something, get as many people and kind of inspire. Uh, and this is kind of, maybe it's a good way to grow. And I was never invited to your childhood clubhouse, but I feel like that would have been a lot of fun to be a part of.
Yeah, I imagine so. But yeah, that's absolutely right. Is that yeah, I mean, I mentioned it in the term of finances. You've got to, build your business in the term of finances so that you can solve bigger problems. But that's absolutely true with people too. I mean, if you don't have people growing, if you're putting people down, it doesn't matter what problems you can solve if people don't want to work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also more fun to work with people, like to solve a big problem with a bunch of people. Like, there's nothing like it. It's very fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I worked for a university for 8 years after I graduated college. I loved like just helping new minds and helping know that I was making an impact on students that were going through probably the most formative years of their life. At least some of them. I know college was huge for me. I liked it a lot. It was a chance for me to really just. I moved out of my parents' house that first year and was encouraged to go live on my own. And it was a great time to really like figure out more of who I am and what I wanted out of the world. And I mean, that sounds really inspirational now, but in the time and the time being, like some of that just ends up being partying or feeling depressed. But I, a lot of that was part of that experience, and I thought that was really valuable. And so, being part of the university, there was a time when I thought, you know what, I'm not sure I'm getting as much out of this as I want to, and the pay is just like abysmally low. Like you don't stay in higher ed education, like in education in general, because you love the pay. We pretty much everyone knows that. And I went and talked to the dean over our area, and he said, "Well, we'd hate to lose you. Have you thought of these other options?" And he mentioned the MBA, the Masters in Business that they had, and I thought, you know what? I've always been like huge into entrepreneurship. I love this college, and they have an entrepreneurial focus for the program, and it's 2.5 years depending on the speed I go through it. And I was like, yeah, that sounds fantastic. Let's do it. I will say my CPA liked me better after that program. But yeah, so that was really good for just learning a little bit more of tax law and then general just how do parts of a business work. Helped fill in some of the gaps for when I build my own business as well, which was really nice. But yeah, then about 5 years ago is when I thought I love cameras, I love media, I love marketing, and I mostly had done like post production work at that point for fun, just like let me animate some other people's stuff or that kind of thing. Taking photos every now and then. I'm really enjoying the process. I took my first like photo. I still have my first photo. It was from middle school, and it's got like an N64 and a 2 liter of Mountain Dew and like one or two other things that were like iconic and important to me at the time. And so I kind of used these like point and shoot cameras. I tried to find it and I couldn't find it, but 2017 is when I got my first ever Mother's Day gift. And
Okay.
yes, let me tell you about that one. My grandmother knew that I was getting into like I really want to learn to use a camera. And we were talking. I called her and I wished her a happy Mother's Day. And I'm talking about like she's asking me how how life's going, and I was like, I think I want to get like into photography and into videography, like really get into it. And I think she's seen this in me before, and she recognizes like there's some passion there that he's going to go somewhere with this. And so she says, I have this camera I use when I go to the beach, but I haven't touched it in like a year or two. and it's a point and shoot camera, but it's got the
A point and
basic
shoot?
things that you need. Oh, point and shoot. It's a so these so these cameras these are called
Of course, you just have one
DSLRs.
like in your lap.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm actually going to be lending this out tomorrow, so I have a bunch of gear just ready here to rent out. I shouldn't say lend, I should say rent. But yeah, so like the lenses come off, so I can switch these lenses. I can, go to different types of lenses and stuff that I
Whoa.
want, and so that way it's very versatile. A point and shoot is one where this whole piece is typically a lot smaller, maybe half this size. It could be smaller than that. It still has a nice, we'll say a decent like actual camera lens to it. I actually can't tell how well you can see this, but has a decent
Like
camera
super
lens to
well.
it. Oh, good. It has a decent camera lens to it, but it's all like one unit. Like I'm not going to take
Okay.
off the lens, and it's a little more like there's less buttons for just like on the fly configuration. But I can get into the menu. I can change things like I'm not going to make this a technical course. So I'm just going to say these things and move on. But it's got like apertures and f-stops and shutter speeds, and I can actually like adjust the ISO on it, and like it's got enough of the features that a higher end camera is going to have that I can learn with it.
Right. So if you kind
So
of know what you're
yeah.
doing, or if you're trying to learn, you can kind of manually adjust the focus. You can manually adjust the f-stop
Hmm.
is that's how fast the shutter moves. So it's like how much light gets into the filter.
Yes.
I took a photography class in the seventh grade,
Oh,
and I'm
there you go.
very rusty. And
Yes.
we had these super cool cameras that were like they were black and white, and they were like old film cameras, and it was so fun. I think like one of our assignments was to take like it was like we always take like a bunch of pictures, like and one roll had like maybe 20 pictures or maybe like way more. I can't really remember, but it was so fun. Just kind of like I never really thought of myself as an artist, but now it's like very clear that this is kind of the direction that I'm kind of going in. And it was just one of those times where it's like you get kind of a tool, and it's so fun to kind of break out of your zone and kind of use it, and kind of be creative with it. So you were talking about your point and shoot. This was back
Yes.
in
2017.
yeah.
So yeah. So do we have a certain amount of time on this?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
just
It just
listening. I'm
popped
like
up and told
captivated
me I
right
have
now.
5 minutes left, so I didn't know if that was just based on a calendar invite. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's
So
just it's
yeah,
completely
so
arbitrary.
so I get this point and shoot camera, and I decide I'm not just going to see if I like using cameras. I'm going to fast track myself to learning how to use a camera. So this is one of those like practice doesn't make perfect, perfect practice makes perfect. And so very intentional approach. I had already watched enough YouTube videos. You have to be very careful with YouTube videos, and I'm to this day like this. There's only so much
Um,
watching someone do something before you actually start putting into practice. Something I love about your podcast is a slight tangent is that you didn't spend years trying to make it perfect. You went for it and you're learning for it and you're going and doing it. I have people, tangent story here. I have people who come to me for gear suggestions and they'll say, "Oh, I'm kicking off a video podcast." This conversation happened
yeah.
less than a year ago. I'm kicking off a video podcast. I'm super excited about it. I'm going to do X number of videos per month, and this is the topic I want it to be around. But I don't have the right, like, I'm looking into microphones. What do you think I should get? And they're like, I have a pretty decent camera now, a webcam, and I can start with that, but I'm also looking into those. And then quickly they ask me as well, what kind of lighting should I get? And they love like I've got this fancy lighting, so they ask me about that, and I tell them, how many, this is my first question before I answer anything. How many podcasts have you created? And I said, well, none. I don't have the gear for it. And I say, do you have a phone? Do you have a laptop with a camera on it? And they're like, yeah, I've got those things, but they're not really where I want it to be. I'm like, unless you just have a ton of disposable income and you just want to blow money because it's fun to you, in that case, go for it. I mean, I'm not saying that it's bad to spend money if you've got it and you want to spend it. I mean, it would be for me, but I'm not going to judge other people's habits and what's good for them. But as far as actually learning to do the thing, don't put money into something you don't even know if you like it yet. Like, take your camera out, record a video podcast. Okay, so you want something better than your window as a light. Here's a $15 light that I started with. go buy one of those. It's amazing what you can do with like a floodlight meant for houses that's $12 to $15. I still use them in my sets and like some side lighting and stuff. But
Yeah,
yeah.
it's literally never worth spending too much money on. Like when I first started skating, I think I spent maybe now you can get really good skateboards from Walmart. Like it's actually incredible. When I started though, it was like you would spend maybe 25 bucks and you'd get like the wheels were like super soft plastic. The trucks, which are the metal pieces that hold the wheels to the deck, so those are made of plastic. And there's this thing called wheel bite where um, so if you've got your skateboard like this and you've got your wheels, so you're kind of looking at the board and the wheels like this. So if you really had it like this, they'd be like this. Um, and what happens when you get wheel bite is like the you lean to one side of the skateboard and kind of the wheels or the board tips like this, and your trucks, the wheel kind of they kind of lean together like this, and the wheel rubs against the deck and it bites it,
Oh.
and it will
Mhm.
totally stop you in your tracks. And
Mhm.
so it's really the only downside of buying a Walmart board. Like that's it. Is you spend your 25 bucks and yeah, there's like a stigma to riding on a Walmart board. You know, everybody knows that you can see it from a mile away. But it's cheap and it's like the best way to learn how to get into it, you know? Or you could go to the skate shop. You pay maybe like $58 for just the piece of wood. Just the piece of the deck wood costs
Mhm.
58 bucks. The grip tape costs about 13, $14. The wheels cost about 60 if you get good ones. The trucks can run you anywhere from like 50 to $100. And so you could walk out of the skate shop 200, $300 down with essentially a piece of equipment that's literally going to degrade. Like if you use it, the only thing it does is like degrade. And so this is kind of how I went into skateboarding is I bought the cheapest equipment that I possibly could, and and I wore it out, and then I went to the skate shop, and then I started buying more expensive gear. And then what I started doing is instead of going to the skate shop to spend $200, $300 on some really nice stuff, I just started ordering bulk decks from Amazon. So I'd get like a big box of like 10 skate decks and a big roll of grip tape. Like it's huge. It's like literally an industrial size thing of grip tape. And you just measure your like 34 inches. Boom. You cut it with a razor blade. I bought like bulk razor blades. And it is very there's something about like it's almost like if you spend a lot of money and you kind of get all of this stuff, it almost takes away from your motivation, or like it makes it harder to, maybe not it makes it harder to, but there's really, maybe it's because there was never any motivation to begin with, and then so now you have all of this gear and you still don't have the motivation. And maybe that's one of the flaws that we make is we think that getting the gear is going to motivate us, but really it's the other way. Like the act, like actually doing the thing creates the motivation to then do the thing.
Yeah, so something that you have with an issue with create with just we'll call it gear acquisition syndrome. When you get to that point, you are more in a place to always one up what you have, and you're not really. So you are looking for gear to solve your problems um, before you even know what your problems are, and that can be a big issue because then you're like, okay, so I'm not good at doing this. Gear will make me better at it. It's not usually how it works. It's more of I need to go until I've learned all I can with what I have, and then something else will help me get that 10% boost. you know, um, camera gear, I don't know how it is with skateboards, but camera gear absolutely has that law of diminishing returns. It is like the camera I'm on right now. I have an issue with the setup, but when I'm just using it for handheld, so there's like some banding on it right now. But like if I'm just using handheld, it does some really cool things. It's like a $3,800 camera before you count the lens and the microphone and everything else
Whoa,
that's on it. Um, it's a cinema
that's
camera,
crazy. I would
but
have never thought. Yeah.
yeah, but the quality on it is probably 10%, 15% better than actually I might call it 15 to 20%, but better than the one that's like that I bought for $1,800 and came with the lens. Which the like the lens on this one, I think this is I have three main lenses I use now and they're all between about 700 and 2000. Um but like it came with a lens that was like 400. It's funny how it's actually I have it over here, but it's funny like you can tell the one that came with that. It feels like at the time it was amazing when I bought this. This was my first kickoff into like getting good cameras, and now this feels so plasticky and cheap to me. But at the time I was like, oh, this is so cool. But yeah,
It's
so
like there's like this idea, I think it's called like the wealth effect, where as your income increases, you tend to spend more money, or as
Mhm.
like your investment portfolio increases, you tend to like buy more things. You spend frivolously, and um, and it's interesting. It's like you're never gonna have enough ever.
Mhm.
And it's kind of interesting because the earlier you realize that, it's almost like the less you kind of stress, and you realize you don't really need all the other stuff. You don't need to go buy some crazy. Um, so a big part of skate culture is like getting the branded decks with your favorite skater, and it's got to be just so it's all the name brand stuff. But really, just getting the blank one is just as good, because at the end of the day, if you're actually using it, it's gonna get torn to pieces. There's no point in getting the skater's autograph on it, or just some crazy decal, because it's just going to get torn up, and I don't know, it's just really not worth it. Like if you're really going to use your equipment, if you really respect your equipment, it will last a long time, and it's kind of like it symbolizes your own growth in that field itself, like you kind of have to, if you're going to get new gear, it has to be warranted, right? Because there is, I think, in everything there's like um
Law of
it
diminishing
takes more
returns.
effort. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The law
You
of
get
diminishing returns.
it costs a whole lot more to go up a tier and you get a whole lot less incremental boost.
Right.
Yeah. So,
It's like to
yeah,
study
yeah.
well, just real quick. So to get your D, maybe you study for 30 minutes. To get a C, maybe an hour, 2 hours. But to get like a B or like an A, you're gonna have to be studying for weeks to get that A, you know?
Like,
So you got to
yeah.
study more and you get just a little bit less. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I took this free camera. I'll come back to the and free, free to me.
Right.
And every month I decided I'm going to shoot fully in manual and I'm going to leave two of these main three settings the same. Like so I'll keep ISO at 800 and I'll keep my f-stop here and all I'm going to change is the shutter speed for all of my shoots. Like whether it's outside, whether it's at night, whether it's at the zoo. And I took that camera everywhere. Like if we were going on a family walk around the neighborhood, that camera was with me. Like it was one of those I'm going to do this. And then after 3 months, I felt like I have decently learned how to use the manual settings on this camera and I know what each of them does on their own because I know how it adjusts at night, how it adjusts at day, how it adjusts in different environments inside and out. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to make so I'm gonna keep doing photo because that camera wasn't great at video, so it barely took video. It didn't have any adapters for extra like microphones or anything like that. So for mostly, I focused on photo. And then a year later, I thought, okay, I'm really loving this. I'm still doing it, and so I want to prove to. So I'm gonna invest 2,500 in that camera I just showed you, and it was that camera, that lens, actually this microphone, which it's like I think it's like $250, but the alternative
What
was like
makes
a
it so
$100.
expensive?
Um, this so it one, it's got
Is
a
it like
rechargeable battery
directional?
inside. It's
Okay, gotcha.
directional. It's mostly near field. So like I can go to an event with this, and as long as I'm like this far from the mic, like if I'm anywhere in this distance from the mic, then it's going to capture me. And even if it's like there's a stage behind me, you're going to be able to pick me out. Not great if it's like a loud stage, but you're going to be able to pick me out from the stage, which is fantastic. And so most events that aren't that loud, this sounds really good. The audio quality is good. It's got a rechargeable battery in it. I can do some high pass filters on the side so that way I can kind of adjust for different environments. And the battery life is like 100 hours, which is
Whoa,
no other
that's a super
microphone in
long
this
time.
price range will give you that. Um, and so I love this one, but I thought it was either this or $100 microphone. But I still use this today. So I thought, okay, this is a place where spending money on a good thing, it's not as expensive as like the shotgun mic that's on the camera over there. But I didn't upgrade mics from this one until like what 2.5, 3.5 years later. But yeah, so I got a good mic because I knew that from everything I read and heard, like microphone, like their audio quality is almost more important than your video quality. And
Yeah,
so I
absolutely. Yeah.
invested. Yeah. So I invested in this first jump and I'm like, okay, this is my big investment. I don't plan on doing another big investment into this venture that I'm doing. So I'm going to make it work, make it everything I can. And I bought like these $25 lights, like two of them. And I was like super cheap lights, but it'll give me something. Oh wait, no, that was later. I used a window. So I could only shoot
Of
when the
course you
sun was
did.
right. When
Oh
the
my
sun
gosh.
was right was the only time I could shoot. But and then I committed to at least a year of putting out a YouTube video every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. I was going to have a YouTube vlog video, recipe video, something posted every single week. And those videos typically took me 8 to 12 hours. So
Whoa.
that was my
All the editing or what? What took so long? That's such a long time.
typically so most of the videos were 8 to 14 minutes long, and typically it was about an hour of setup and prep for the just what am I going to shoot, how am I going to do this. If it's a recipe, then it's like making sure I have all the supplies, making sure I know my recipe. Do I really know my recipe, or am I going to have to look things up? um, and then preparing like a little bit of a script, like what's the story through here, what's the path through here. The first video I did was Star Wars waffles, and it's beautiful, by the way. I
Star Wars
actually,
waffles. And
yes,
this is on
and
YouTube. I can look this up.
it's the first video on my account. Yeah, Jem Kagawa, youtube.com/Jem Kagawa. So I hope you don't mind me throwing out
No,
some
I love it. I love the
shout outs
plug. I
there.
respect it. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
so
absolutely.
so I did this every week. Now some I will admit some of those weeks were junk. They were like, I haven't shot anything this week and I need something. Here's a video. It's
Yeah.
like for my standards and ideas, it was junk. But the thought was there, and I did this for actually a whole year and a half. Um, and it taught me that yes, I do enjoy this. Even through the hard times, I keep wanting to do this. I want to do this. I want this to be a thing. I didn't want to start kicking off building this business and starting to do things for other people and then become, you know, essentially needed by other people, or people would come back to me and say, hey, like, I know how businesses work. You do good work for people, they come back and they want you to do more work for them. And so I didn't want to start committing to things and then find out I don't really like doing this. And so that's what that YouTube time was for. I didn't shoot to grow my YouTube channel. I shot to grow myself. And that's why it was a hodgepodge. Like they say, if you want to build a YouTube channel that grows, niche one, focus on that thing and do that
Mhm.
thing well. Mine was like recipes, conference coverage, Father's Day vlog. We like made eggs Benedict and then went ice skating. Like it was a fun video, but vacation videos. It was all over the place.
Well, but even ironically, you're
Mhm.
doing the same thing that they're saying. Like you're not necessarily focusing on one niche, but in a way you are because you're focusing on yourself. And so, whereas like normally maybe the YouTube growth is like the manifestation, but in this case, it's like your own personal growth that's
Yes,
being manifested.
exactly. And so I had actually done video editing. I hadn't shot the video myself, but I edited other people's video. And I shot some video, but not a lot. And what, after that year and a half, what used to take me 50 hours to edit, I have actually two videos I made that took me 50 hours to make back in the mid to 2010s. Now took me about 2 to 4. And
Whoa.
what I realized from that time as well was that um, now some of that's better tools, but it's also learning to use those tools and learning what works. Like now I know those shortcuts really well. I don't have to go into the edit menu and choose things. I know what kinds of edits work and what don't. So I don't have to guess and tinker with things back and forth. And I'm also more efficient at making like overlays, lower thirds, all those kinds of things. And so I realized I could, like, with the same amount of time, I could make 2 videos in a year, or I could make 50. It was more of like not quite 50 because that's just editing time, um, but it's more of like the let me get better at doing this before I go out and try to make things, because that's also not sustainable to take 30 to 50 hours to do each video that I need to do. If it's in honestly, by the ones I was making now,
Mm.
I would call them not great videos. Those ones that I spent 30 to 50 hours on.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, so where did this come from? This kind of very enterprising attitude, but it's also very much like kind of bootstrapping your way up. Is this something that was instilled from you, from your parents, or did you just build this on your own? Like, where did this come from?
Ooh, that is a great question. I think there's a good chunk of that that actually did come from my parents' story. My parents were ones that grew up in, I I don't want to call it real poverty, but like relatively low means. Like I was technically born in a trailer. I lived in a trailer my first year of life. I don't remember it, but and then a lot of my childhood years, like we did stuff like we went to Goodwill for clothing, and that's like I got good new clothing from like those kinds of stores. And my parents worked super hard to like what's the laugh there?
Dude, I went dancing the other night with some old high school buddies, and it was so fun. Just a great time. And we were at there was this bar in the back, like out back, and I was just hanging out talking to the guy next to me, and there's a guy in front of us who had just like a really crisp, nice shirt on, like collared. And I was like, man, great shirt. Your shirt is phenomenal. Like, this is excellent. And the guy next to me was like, oh my gosh, where'd you get it? And he said something like, I don't remember where it was from. It was some kind of like hoity-toity kind of place.
Yeah,
Like if you heard the brand, you'd be like, oh yeah, I've heard of that
yeah.
place. And it was so interesting because it's like those shirts probably cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Hmm.
And I'm sitting here thinking like, whoa, like I'm at my shirt. My shirt costs $6.99, and it still looks great. It makes me feel great. And there's just not. Sometimes it's just not worth spending a whole lot of money on it, right? Like the Goodwill is like my favorite place in the
Yeah.
world to shop. Goodwill, Thriftland, in College Station, they have this place called Second Chance Resale,
Oh yeah.
and it's those places where the real value is. Like, sure, you can spend a lot of money where the high prices are, but it's like, I guess for me, it's about the investment. You spend a little bit of money, but you get a lot of value.
Hmm.
And so I didn't mean to take it away. You were
Oh, that's fine.
basically you were talking about kind of your upbringing,
Yeah.
and
So
yeah,
yeah, so I will say most of my shirts still are like conference shirts. Like
yeah.
a good chunk of my shirts are like free shirts I got at conferences. This shirt is a special shirt to me. I bought it this year. Well, although technically it came from birthday money. Someone gave me birthday money. I saw someone wearing this shirt back in May, and I really loved it. And I love wolves, and so I was like, oh my gosh, that shirt's beautiful. And so I bought this shirt for like $20, and it's one of my few like shirts that I spent money on. And so I really like this one, but I really like a lot of my shirts. Like, yeah, I'm much like that as well. I think there's something to getting an outfit that's like really tailored for you. That's a lot of fun
Oh, absolutely.
and can
Yeah.
look really good. But there's also something really great about free conference shirts and, and the
You
like.
know, there's also something to so like the way that I was raised. It sounds very similar, and I would like you to kind of tell me a little bit more about it because I'm just very interested in your upbringing because from where you are now, it seems like just the growth curve is unstoppable.
Yeah.
But dude, I'll never forget. I used to have a Spalding basketball, and we had this hoop on the side of my house growing up, and like I always wanted a basketball because all my friends had like brand new basketballs and it was like the coolest thing. But I was never allowed to get a new basketball. And the rule was whenever the black lines on the outside of the ball, whenever those wore off, then I was allowed to get a new one. And I always thought that my dad was being so like rude, or I just thought he was being mean, frankly. But after all these years, and even the other day I was hanging out with a friend and she was like, wow, I honestly expected you to drive like a nice car, and if you see my car, it would be like, whoa, like this is not what I expected. I mean, the wheels falling off and the windshield's kind of doing its own thing. And but I don't know, there's just something to kind of sticking with what you've got and kind of getting the most out of it. You know, it's like you strike me as somebody when you eat chicken wings, you eat all of the meat on the chicken wings. You don't just eat like take one little bite and then toss it. You know, it's like no, you get the most of what you got.
Yeah, I'll say, funny enough, on that example, I I have a thing that I don't love chicken bones, but
Really,
but
oh,
so
I
but
love them.
so I would say that one's not a that specific example is one, but I would overall rather not waste too much, so I don't get chicken wings most places. I would go for more boneless, but that analogy works in a lot of other places for me. So so yes. But yeah, so that was one of the things. It's like, hey, they grew up with like they made jokes, and these are not 100% true, but they hit at the truths of where they were. And they made jokes of like when like they'd be like when I was young, and my parents are both like one of many siblings. Like somewhere between 4 and 7 each, kind of thing. And they're like, when I was young, we used to have hot dog soup. And I'm like, what is hot dog soup?
Hot
And
dog
they're like,
soup.
yeah, our parents would boil hot dogs and they'd eat the hot dogs and we'd get the soup that was left over.
Ah,
And it's
that's
like,
disgusting.
oh my, what? They're like, wow, that's all right. And it's it's not completely that story is not true. But I mean, it's true that they told that to me. But it's kind of it gives an idea. And like my mom, here's the true one. She said like she was the youngest of her siblings, and she said that something she loved about her mom was that if they had steak, the parents would get steak, and the kids would get, like the parents would split a steak, and the kids would get something else, like hamburgers or something else. And she said that her mom always saved the bone for her so she could get bits of steak off of the bone, and that was a memory that she really enjoyed, and that was a special thing for her. And like that kind of thing is something that like I like kind of helps you to get an understanding and appreciation for what you have. And then on top of that, my parents, both of them, they had children a little later, I think around 25. And when I say later, most generations in my family line have been more like the like 16 to 19 years.
Whoa,
My great
that's
grandmother was
awesome.
alive for quite a long time. Like I knew my great grandmother unfortunately passed away from Alzheimer's a few years ago, but she was like 94, and and so we actually have a picture of great grandmother, my grandmother, my dad, me, and my son all in the same picture. So we have so many generations of
Is that
family.
5 generations?
It is, and
Dude,
it's like
that is
I think
incredible.
she was still like up until like 2 or 3 years before the end. She's English. She was in World War II. She was amazing.
So
She
she's
tells
tough,
stories of like
yeah.
bombing raids and such. And she'd be like, when the bombs started falling, we'd go to a local pub because they had a basement there. And I would drink
Whoa.
the guys under the table there. Like those kinds of stories. Like
Dude,
yeah.
okay. I have to interject. So, I
Mhm.
read this book once called Splendid in the Vile, and I can't recall exactly who it's by, but a lot of the so it tells the story of World War II, but specifically like a very short time period. I think it's like 1943 to the end of the war. And it was very interesting because a lot of the supplemental material in the book comes from journal entries from all the people. And what's so interesting about it is like through the hardship, everybody seemed like it was like culturally acceptable. Like everybody in the whole country took these journals and they wrote down like what they did today, what they ate, who they were falling in love with, yada yada, you know. And everybody just wrote down everything, and it was so cool to like how the author kind of referenced all of those journals, and he even referenced like Winston Churchill's bodyguard and how like Winston Churchill would be in the back of his car like pontificating and practicing his speeches like in the back of a car on like this hour-long road trip by himself, just being a weirdo. And it was just so cool to see the personal the unique perspectives that each person had. I'm wondering, does your grandma have or your great grandma have any of these journals? Like, was she a part of this, or have you seen this, or
I'll say I haven't heard of any journals from her, and my grandmother's never spoken of her having journals like that. I will say that my family on that side, my family is British and German. Like it's nearly 50-50. Like it's pretty much those two.
that's so
And so
cool.
she was in the UK at this time. So I don't know if they were keeping journals the same way. And maybe they kept stories differently. Um,
Well, it could have been
or maybe they got
or
lost to time. Like it's hard to say.
right. It could
But
be some sort of
yeah,
bias where the only journals that I heard about were the ones that people kept, you know. Um, so I don't know.
yeah. Oh,
Um,
exactly. So, but yeah, I just have the stories that she'd tell, which have been really great. But yeah, she would still be like frying up fish and chips, and like having her, she loved Guinness, she loved a beer with her fish and chips, and she loved Parrot Bay coconut rum. Like those were her two favorites. We
That
have
sounds
one,
good.
like her vision started going bad, and we're at, I think she was about 83, 85. I hope this, I honestly, I gotta say, I hope this is me one day. But so we're all out, and we're out at like what's it called, something of nails, bag of nails. It's like typical like Irish pub kind of thing. Um, and so we're out there. She gets fish and chips. She gets her beer, and we've got malt vinegar. We got to have malt vinegar. Like
Oh,
that's just the way it goes
gross.
with fish and chips, and your chips having malt vinegar on them.
Heck
That's
yeah.
very UK, like very very
Yeah.
British to have the malt vinegar with it. Not none of this tartar sauce that all the Americans do. But so she's doing that, and she goes to reach for her malt vinegar to put it all over, and we all, like a couple of us, not me, I didn't notice at the time yet, that apparently I wasn't focusing on it, start yelling at her no, and she goes to pour the malt vinegar on, and it's her beer, and it goes all over the fish and all over the
Oh
table, and it's just
my
like, oh
gosh.
my gosh, no.
It just so
And
soggy
it's
now.
like
Oh.
this like store, you've all got to like jump back from the table and start cleaning and got to figure it out and everything, but it's like just one of those fun memories of like, and obviously an experience like this didn't keep her. I think she still probably tried to put that fish in her pocket purse for later. She had this like pocketbook, it's somewhere between a purse and a pocketbook, but she would like just put food straight in it to bring home. And like I don't
Interesting.
know if this is like based on some habit of earlier years or what, but yeah, like doesn't ask for a doggy bag or anything. Like she literally, we watched her once put a piece of pizza in there. It was like in a to-go box. It's okay.
That's hilarious. I mean, she's
Yeah.
definitely a product of her generation. I mean, as we all
Hmm.
are, we're all just a product of
Yes.
our generation. Because before the 40s, there was I mean, the crash was in like 29. And so maybe that kind of fed into that, where they just, whatever you had on you, if you had some food, you just put it in
Yeah.
there, you know?
Yeah.
I
I
feel
I
that.
imagine it had to do something with that, but yeah. So, all right. So back to my formative years.
Yeah. Okay. I love it.
So my parents, they spent some time. They didn't actually, I think my dad went to like 2 years of college or something. I think he got an associate's. Um, and my parents started working both hard and smart. And so they really like built themselves up, and they said we're not going to do what our family's done. We're going to change, so that they stopped using curse words, and they stopped yelling in front of kids, and like there's a whole lot of things in their family line that they were like, we are going to do things differently. And they changed a lot. Like I know all of us as parents, our goal is to make like incremental changes, and the things that were bad about our parents or that we saw as bad, we want to make better. They changed a lot. And I didn't even know how much they changed until a little later. But yeah, and so they worked hard. They got themselves into like essentially they went from like a lower class to a middle class, and then like slowly built that like middle to upper middle kind of range. I'm not sure. They're probably, classes are so difficult, and they
I
have
don't
such
even
gray
know
lines,
if
but
classes
yeah.
even exist anymore, because if you
Uh-huh.
ask 10 people,
Hmm.
and eight, nine of them are going to say they're in the middle class, even if they're
Hmm.
like 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, all the way up to 100,000, eight of them are still going to tell you that they're in the middle class. So
Hmm.
I don't know that any of
Yeah.
that, does it even really matter, you know? Because like
Okay.
at a certain point, isn't it just something to compare yourself against others? Which
And that
like,
is the one reason I'm using it now, is to try to compare that, like, hey, they moved enough that they made a jump.
there you go.
But yeah, they did really well, and
That's so cool.
they worked hard. They worked with the same company, and really, and not just like worked that company, but like grew in that company. Like, hey, where can I really make an impact here? Whether I'm asked to or not, like we're gonna do this. And then so that led to like me getting to experience this really interesting, like almost two different worlds through my life. And so then we got to a point where like we're traveling more. My dad worked for an airline, so like we could fly places super cheap. And so like I like here's a lesser known fact about me. I've been to Cancun like 12, 13 times. I've been to Hawaii like 8 times. Because when we flew there, it cost us less than $100 to fly round trip to Hawaii.
Whoa.
Like it's just, and so I've been to these places a lot, but like for 1 to 2 days, like quick flights because the hotel is expensive, but the flight is
Yeah.
cheap.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so like if we can go like to Hawaii once or twice this year, we can actually go there and see things really cheap as long as we don't need to stay in that hotel. Like we always stayed in Holiday Inns, which I don't think my wife and I have stayed in a Holiday Inn. Like we get like fancier hotels now, and it's like we're so, and I think this childhood thing always makes me look back and like feel so fortunate about where I am now. And so I think that's part of beating the gear acquisition syndrome and beating the need to buy better things and beating that curve. I know there's a term for it and I forget what it is, but as your income goes up, I don't need to spend more. I can invest more. I can pay off more
Right.
debt. And so I live my spending curve has gone up kind of like this while my income goes up like this.
Right.
And so it does, my spending does go up, but we've worked really hard. We went for Financial Peace University. It's been huge for us. It was the year after college. So fast forward a little bit. I'm getting out of college. I have 11 credit cards. I have like five to seven thousand
Whoa.
dollars in debt, and I pulled out extra on my student loans, so I had spending money for the fun of it,
Yep.
while also working a student job and having spending money for the fun of it. And it was kind of like I built myself a new PC as a graduation gift to myself. In today's terms, it would be horrendous. I built that on student loan and credit cards. Like that's not a graduation gift to myself. In today's terms, I'd be like horrified at myself. Like how could I have spent that money that I didn't have? But that all changed when my wife and I were like, okay, we want to do life together, and these financial habits that we had, we're going to break those. And that was part of, I skipped a part of the story with my parents. They started doing really well, and that meant credit cards were willing to come their way and give them high limits. So now they can spend money knowing they're making a good income at this point, so they can pay it off. And then you get to a point where you have 40, 50, 60,000 just in your credit cards, not counting your mortgage and your car and that kind of stuff. And so I
In
kind of
debt?
learned like yeah. So I turned 18 and I
Whoa.
got my first credit card. I was like, I
Yeah.
can get a credit card now. Let's do this. And so after college, that was when it was like, you know what? That's going to be one of the places that like I absolutely understand. Like my parents are close to paying off their credit card debt today. Uh, they're they're close to it. They've kind of changed some of the ways and such, but it takes a long time. But I absolutely get why they are where they are, and they totally made leaps and bounds over where they were. And now it's my turn to say, okay, now credit cards are not a thing that are that are like wealth builders. And so I shredded all my credit cards. And I actually shredded absolutely everyone in 2011. And I have had no credit cards for 10 years. And then just this year, around January, I got my first credit card since 10 years ago. And I got it for business expenses. And the main reason for it was because I'm doing more flying now, and the flying's not on my dad's cheap bills. I have to pay for those flights, so I got a Southwest card. I thought, okay, if I have a business expenses, I know how those expenses look. Literally just putting those on it and paying those off, and that's it. Like, let me just get some free miles. And do you know what's funny? About 2 to 3 months ago, I used the card thinking, okay, here's some expenses we have for the house that I can use for these. And so I'll use this card. I'll get miles out of it anyway. And I spent more than I should have. And I was like, same patterns are there. So now we're at okay. So my wife and I had a little talk about it, and I'm like, absolutely still the same person as far as credit cards. If you can use credit cards responsibly,
Oh my God, you
good
remind
on
me of
you. Whoever's
me.
watching this, like,
Nice.
great, go for it. For me, and I actually know this for a fact for a lot of people, credit cards make it easier to spend, whether or not you're
Oh,
saving money or getting
100%.
points or anything. And so I know I spend less if I use cash or a debit card. So the card is back to business expenses only and business expenses that I know I'd have to spend, not like the frivolous ones. Like there's money in the account. It's literally like set to just automatically pay that business expense at the end.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
also used for like reimbursements through like the consulting. Like if I have to travel for improving, then I'm going to put that on the card and then use the reimbursement for it. So
Well, yeah, I mean, because not only do you get you technically profit from that, you get like your little, you
mhm.
get a few bips on that, I think, or maybe if you're lucky, you can actually get 2 or 3%, right, on your credit card points, which is just incredible. And this is why I used to open credit cards. Like, um, I think the day I turned 18, I got a credit card, and and it was like it was so cool because on the thing, I mean, it still says. Let me see if I can have it right here. Um, yeah, see card holder. I'm not going to show you because the number is actually on the back too, but it says
Yep.
card holder since 15. And I'm so proud that I've had this card for so long. And but you're absolutely right. Whenever the money becomes not real, it's like it's so easy to spend it. For example, last night I have this obsession with investing. I will invest to my own detriment. Like I will get money, and what I started doing, I made like a little agreement with myself where I will on the 15th of the month. That's when I can invest. So when I get paid on the 31st or the 30th or whatever, this is when I pay all my bills for the whole month. So from like the 30th to the 15th of the next month, I have zero money, and and then from the 15th on, I take all that money and I just invest it. And
Mhm.
so recently, because of the Vegas trip and because of other expenses, I locked myself out of my car recently. Yes, learned a valuable lesson.
Oh.
Yes, very expensive, valuable lesson. So won't be doing that again. First time I've ever done that, and I've had my car for a long time now.
Oh, jeez.
So that was very expensive. But what I'll do is I'll, especially these days when a lot of assets are like just plummeting, the stock market. I mean, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but
I
we've
watch
been
the
in a
market.
little bit of a slump, right? And I'm very grateful for my position in life and all the things that I have. And I understand what happens when markets go down. Some people literally lose everything, and it's very unfortunate. But on the other side, I'm over here dancing. I'm absolutely dancing because every single day I'm buying more. And so one of my favorite brokerages is Robinhood because of the UI. It's
Mhm.
just phenomenal. Say what you want about Robinhood, whatever, I get it, right? I've heard it all before. But what I'll do is, so I have a margin account on Robinhood. And what I used to do is I would buy, and then on the 15th or the 30th, then I would pay off all my margin. I looked at my margin account recently and it had like $700 in it, which literally I was like, oh my gosh, I was utterly shocked. So, because one of my favorite things to do is I'm a big Bitcoiner or whatever. And so I'll take the margin and I'll spend it on Bitcoin, especially recently when Bitcoin's been doing nothing but dropping. Are you kidding me? I've been buying like a madman every single day. I'm buying more, buying more, buying more.
Mhm.
And it's a little bit to my detriment because now I have all these things that I don't even own, right? Which is kind of like a credit card. You have all this stuff, you spend all this money, but it's not really yours because you don't own any of it. And so now I'm kind of in this phase where I think total I have like $100. Like this is all the money that I have to my name because
Mhm.
everything else is either in the market
Yep.
or and I've got all these. I don't know. I really am obsessed with paying off my credit cards. I actually get physically uncomfortable by having a credit card balance, which I don't know how I got so lucky for that because like having any sort of credit card balance makes me like sick to my stomach.
Yep.
But like the margin account for some reason I have margin and it's cool. I don't it doesn't bother me. Um, but maybe it's because the margin doesn't affect your credit score. It's not tied to
Mhm.
your anything like that. But um, yeah, it's just, there's
Well,
something
so
so easy. Yeah.
on the credit cards, having a credit card balance of what is it, 40% is actually the best thing you could do to build your credit score.
I don't know. This is not financial advice, just for
I
anybody who's
Oh,
tuning
no,
in.
no, no. So
Um,
I have heard that
40% of
having
your debt to of your
I have
total
heard that
allowable.
paying off your no, 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 not 40% of your credit score has helped. No, having some credit. Now 40% is probably not the real number these days. This is based on what I learned like 10 or 15 years ago. But I've heard that actually paying off your cards every month is worse than showing you can keep some debt and roll it through. Um,
Hmm. Well, but then
because
what's the
otherwise, you're
okay?
not really showing that you know how to manage debt. You're showing you know how to put something on a card and pay it off right away. That you have enough money not to need to worry about debt.
I've always paid it off.
Yeah.
And
No,
I've heard
having a
this
card and paying it
before.
off instantly will build your credit. It's not that it won't. I've heard you build it faster if you have some debt
So
that rolls.
why do you want your credit score so high?
I don't. Actually, my goal in life is to not have a credit score. I want to go somewhere that needs to look at my credit score and they go look it up and they say, huh, I think my system's having an issue. And I say, it's not. I don't have a credit score. And, and they're like, what do you mean you don't have a credit score? Do you know how you not have a
Interesting.
credit score?
I
That
would
just
I would
returns no number. You
maybe
don't
you
do
don't have any
anything
credit
with
cards
debt
for
for
7 years.
10 years. You don't
10
have any
years, there you
credit
go.
cards, car loans, mortgages, anything
Why would you
for
want
10
that
years.
though? Oh my gosh, Christopher,
I
you're
kind of want
crazy.
I want that for I think the same reason that I want some several things in life. It's it's different. It's out there. It's something that like is a hard achievement. It is something that like I know it's going to be difficult to get there, but also if I do that in a smart way, I don't say like I don't do it now and then when I go to get my house like I'm screwed or I go to get a car. No, I mean like I have enough investments that when I need to get a car, loans aren't a place that I go. And by the way, I've never bought a car on a loan. Like I drove my last car until it was 22 years old. Like I've always been what cash I can afford, that's the car I can afford. Like if the car costs 20,000 and I can't pay 20,000 cash for it, I can't afford that car. So like, and no one ever runs a credit score for that. Like, if you have cash, no one needs to know your credit score, and no one cares what your credit score is because you have money to give them. So
I feel that. And honestly, in a way, I respect it. I don't know that I ever make a decision like that because as soon as my bank account goes over $1, I get jittery. I'm like, I have to deploy this into the market. I have to buy some stocks. Like I have to.
mm,
And it makes me physically uncomfortable to have any amount of money because what I've noticed to myself, and maybe you can comment on this, is any amount of money that I have in my bank account, I immediately will spend it. I'll either go buy some. I'm obsessed with consumer electronics. I love them. Like there's something so motivating about like having lots of monitors or having some sweet computer that I'm looking at right here. I mean, it is top notch and it's shiny and it's smooth and all these great things about it. And it's very cool. And yeah, it's my work machine and all these things. But it's like I don't need to use my EIP, right? Like I get that it's a crazy good loan and why would you not ever take that loan? But essentially I'm looking at it like it's a $60 a month expense, right? And why would I accept that $60 a month when I could deploy that into the market? And so any amount of money that I have, I just spend it. And so to protect myself from myself, I essentially I make myself broke. I spend all my money before I get it, and I spend it on stocks or whatever. So it's technically not spending.
yeah.
Um, but when I see my bank account has $111.11 in it, then I know, oh well, maybe I shouldn't go to McDonald's. Maybe I should just go buy food from HEB. Um, and so it's kind of like the long term strategy where you live like a college student on $100 until maybe I mean I'm like 3 years into the strategy, really like two and a half, and I'm like an assiduous journaler. I write down everything. So my mom, she passed away when I was really young, and it wasn't until recently that I found out my sister had all of her journals, like lots of them, and we actually spent a Christmas going through all of these journals, and it was something else. I mean, it really was special. And so it was something very motivating about that that kind of kicked me into gear and kind of convinced me that like other people might find value in these things that I write down. Not only that, but I love it. So I keep a financial journal that I update regularly. That's been kind of graphing out all of my debts and all of my assets for the last like Um, I think since about 2015, actually since I got my credit card, I started doing this. Um, and it's just so cool, like kind of seeing the journey and um, I don't know. There's just something about like the legacy of your own kind of history, uh,
Yeah.
which I mean, it seems like I would bet. And correct me if I'm wrong. I bet your family kind of knows exactly what it's been doing for kind of many generations. Like, what's that like?
So I do want to say that I think you and I are not that much different as far as the money goes. There is more standing money with my account than like I think maybe this is part of where I've been the past like 15 years. But like we all have to play, like we all create these games that are like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what like these mental games. To what do I need to do to make sure that I make the most of the financial resources that I have? And they're usually like a fight between what I know is right and what I
Yeah,
emotionally want to do and what my body wants to do. Like
right.
what cravings do I have and what do I need to do to satisfy maybe some of them, but also make sure that they don't take over. And
Like I think
yeah. Hmm.
the most, and this is going to be a really weird example. I think a good example of this is paying off your mortgage versus just paying the minimum balance, right? So like
Hmm.
financially, the best decision in my opinion is to not pay your mortgage, pay the absolute minimum balance, pay it for 30 years. Yeah, I get you're going to end up paying $199,000 in interest, but the gains that you're going to make in the market over that same 30-year period, like because wealth is an accelerative thing, like it builds on itself, right? And so a fixed rate debt, whatever, but it like basically what I'm trying to say is
Yep.
emotionally it feels good to pay off your debts, but mathematically it's actually better to pay the minimum balance, and assuming that you maintain employment and
I have an amazing story around that.
okay, yeah.
So when we first graduated, so I'm gonna date myself here. I think I'm a little bit older than you, but
Okay.
based on our stories here, but yet like my first credit card when I mentioned that 18, I got my first card. That was 2005, and so as far as a reference of time, but so I graduate out of college and it's in 2010. And by 2011, we're like full steam into let's pay off our credit cards and our debt and our student loan debt, which was six figures. And so it was like
Whoa.
not an insignificant
That's
amount of student loan debt.
incredible.
Yeah. And I had a huge scholarship. Like three-fourths of my student loan debt was forgiven, but we both went to a private college. And then also like pulled out extra money for spending money and such, like just stupid
Oh, of
college
course. For
decisions.
sure.
Like, so if I
Oh, we've
needed
all
to,
done that.
I think I pulled out an extra 5 or 10 thousand per semester as like
Every semester. Yeah,
oh, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I could pull these out for books. Oh yeah, and I have a student job that's paying
I
for
used to
books,
do that
you know.
and deploy it into the market, dude.
So
Like,
that's a great
so
idea. I did that and spent it. So anyway, so I
honestly,
get
both
out of college.
decisions, not wise. Not that wise.
Well, yeah, because you're probably deploying it in the market and then paying 20 to 30% on it. But
Yeah,
well,
and also you don't know what you're a
four to
kid. You don't
10,
know
I
what you're
think was
doing.
common. But yeah, anyway. So I get out of college and I go through this financial class and I'm like, you know what? I agree with this. I'm gonna start shredding my cards and going for it. And we're like, this guy is recommending like that we pay off with a snowball technique, which says pay off your smallest loan and then put that money toward the next one,
Okay.
and then pay off that and put that money toward the next one. And we're like, but our small loans are all at like 2 to 4%. Our
Right,
big
right.
loan is at like 9.5 to 10.5. I can't remember exactly, but it was like significantly different. So we go at it, and for a year and a half to two, we live like we're poor. Like we have good jobs. We both had good jobs. Um, now I had an education job, and so I'm making like probably half of my wife what does. But even at that, we're not like we're well above what poverty would be, or like we're living good. Um, and we're living like we have nothing. Like we live in a single bedroom apartment and like just outside of where like the real nice neighborhoods are. And and we're like we're going at it. Let's get rid of this debt. And we go at that for like a year and a half to two with no progress other than a number on this one loan. And at the end of that, we were like exhausted. And we finally pay it off and we're like, yes, let's take a break. And we took a break for like 2, 3 months, 4 months goes by, and we're like, wow, we have to really get back on this. 5 months goes by. We're like, wow, we just completely took a break from all of that because we were mentally exhausted and we hadn't seen any progress. And we finally did it. And we're like, yes, let's celebrate and treat ourselves. And then we took a break. And so we're like, okay, let's try the snowball technique. And we start doing this and we go after the $600 loan and then the 15, or I think it might have been like 1,000, and then like the $2,200 loan. And we start seeing like wins every like 2 to 4 months. And we're like, oh, this is so exciting. Let's keep going. And like, so yes, mathematically it doesn't make sense, but I think we have to remind ourselves that we are emotional beings sometimes, even if we like to think that we're logical. I like to think I'm super logical, but that was a moment like that first loan taught me I can be emotional too. And
Oh
so
my
if it works for
gosh.
you to do avalanche like highest interest first, let's make sure we invest the best toward the future. Go for it. It didn't work for me, and I learned that. So
Yeah,
we
it's
keep an
very.
emergency fund, and I think we try to keep around 15 to 20,000 just sitting there doing nothing, like literally earning us fractions of like pennies.
Oh my
and
gosh,
and it's like,
Christopher.
oh, that sounds
No.
awful, but something happens around the house, the kids need something, like something breaks, it's instantly ready. It doesn't matter how the market's doing right now, it doesn't matter if it's 20% down, that money's ready to go. Now I still have money in the market and I'm still building toward my future, but that emergency fund was built and is sitting there, and we know if something comes up it's ready to go.
Right, and the counter argument to this would be, oh, inflation's going to be taking. Honestly, forget
Mhm.
inflation. Like the
Yeah.
20 grand is going to give you so much peace of mind that that alone is worth more than
That
its
is
weight in gold.
exactly
You
where
know?
that money lives. Like right now, it's
Absolutely.
lower because our house had some water issues, and then with the car being stolen, some of that money's disappeared.
That sucks,
But
dude.
even with all that
Wow, that
happened,
sucks.
we're at like 12,000. And honestly,
Yeah,
like in not counting investments, not counting mortgage on the house, like you just look at cash in the bank, and you're like, that is just like a safety pillow. And that even with all these
uh,
torrents of things that are going on, we're like, at least I don't have to worry financially. Like, yes, I have to use all my time, and yes, I have to take extra PTO, and there's these other issues that come up. But financially, my biggest concern, like my wife and I's biggest concern financially for like a decade now, even with student loans and everything, our biggest financial concern is how do we do the most good with our money, not how do we make it. And that is a game changer.
so there's this interesting phenomenon. It's kind of like this S curve, and it's kind of like this is why you have to be very careful of giving people financial advice, is because the easiest example here is age, right? A 65-year-old man and a 19-year-old man, these are very different beasts, right? One of them can take substantially more risks
Hmm.
than the other because they just simply you have more time. And so like with like the young man, so my emergency fund, I don't really believe in emergency funds, but my emergency fund is completely invested in ETFs.
Hmm.
So like anytime I need, like anytime the brown stuff hits the spinny thing on the ceiling, this is when I would go and I would sell some shares of some
Hmm.
ETFs, because all
Yes.
of like the real capital is invested in things like Tesla, things like
Mhm.
Bitcoin, the things that I have high conviction in, where I'm just going to play the 4 year, 5 year game and
Mhm.
just wait. And I don't do any water cooler investing. Frankly, I don't care what you think about my investments. It's all good because I've got it all partitioned,
Yeah.
and if something really bad does happen, then I'm prepared to sell. And even in the worst case, you're only going to take maybe like a 20% haircut. Like in the worst case,
Hmm.
like maybe
Yeah.
you'll take a 20% haircut on your savings account. Um, but it's a 20% haircut. It's not, because at
Yeah.
least you know
And
that
you
it's
probably
still
don't have
there.
to drain it all. So you probably turned
Right.
out ahead overall.
Right. And you can, and then you still have your credit card, which is a huge buffer. So you pay something with that, you sell your stocks, and now you get credit card points. So maybe you took a 20% haircut over here, but you get your 1% over here. So now you're profiting 1%. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Uh,
and so, but what I think is really interesting is you and I are exactly opposite at the exact like opposite things. So whereas you might approach paying your debt in an emotional way, I approach my spending in an emotional way, where you approach your spending in a very logical way.
yeah,
Um,
it's
so, but
business.
it's kind of the same thing, you know? Yeah.
That's
Um,
funny.
I couldn't hold on to money. I mean, my whole life I've always been really obsessed with money, but what it really is value. It's just value. This
Mm,
is why I go
mhm.
shop at Goodwill, and why my favorite shirt in the whole world costs $6.99, because it
Yeah.
just makes me feel good. Like it doesn't matter what it costs or anything. It's like does it feel good? Does it feel good on you? Are you proud of the things that you own? Are you grateful for? And maybe this is the most important thing, is like, are you genuinely grateful for things that you've gotten, the things that you've built? And you got to be grateful, but then you also have to be kind of aggressive, or whatever you're kind of looking forward to. It's important to have both, because if you're only grateful, then maybe you're not going to be as enterprising. And if you're only uh, maybe, well, what's a good word for,
Risk taking?
yeah, if you're like only risk taking, then maybe when you do win, you're not going to be as modest about it, or maybe as proud of the hard work that went into it, because you just kind of gambled and you just won. I don't know. Like I'm very, very proud of my family, because of like my dad. He never bought me a new basketball ever, like ever. And so I was really proud. Like now I'm really proud of my car, which is essentially falling apart, but it still gets me from point A to point B. And I'm the only person that I know that still drives their first car. And that makes me so proud. And like I just love that. And when I get into it, and I recently started this new like kind of behavior where I'll clean it out. So I'll like vacuum the inside and dust um, the dashboard like up top and clean it all off. And it's just real cool, because
Yeah.
yeah, like literally everything is falling apart, and the shift boot is like literally tattered, um and it's basically falling to pieces. I mean, the rugs in the bottom of the car have holes in them from where my foot sits. But it like, honestly, because it's so old, it makes me proud. It makes me want to have it longer, you know? And let's say one day that like I make it or whatever, I want that car to be in my driveway still, because it's a symbol of the growth, you know? And maybe this is why I would bet that you still have maybe your first camera, or all of the stuff that you just the stuff that you have, maybe you don't have it still, but you remember it, and it's definitely a part of your journey, you know?
I do have those older things. I always think it's more because I'm a hoarder, but every now and then I get them out. I do have my first camera. It's a Canon like point and shoot kind of thing, and like I don't know, at the time it probably cost 80 to $100, but yeah, it was like I remember some of the photos I took on that, and yeah, it's good to know that like, hey, whatever you had at the time, that's fantastic. It's kind of like, so I know where like for us, like when those of us that are developers, like actually almost any craft that you can think of, anything that requires any amount of skill and or creativity, which is like everything. uh if you can look back, and like a lot of people say, oh, I look back at that and I'm so embarrassed, it's so awful.
Like the
But
work I used to
honestly,
do, yeah.
if you look back a year or two, and I look back at old code, old photos, old video editing, any of that, and I think, wow, that's really bad. Like that was I remember being so proud of that at the time. That is a fantastic feeling. That means you've grown.
You may. Oh, this is when you play. Wait, hit the SpongeBob. Woo!
Okay, yes. So oh, that's funny. So exactly. So if we look back and you see like those things that you used to do and they are not great, they're like you're like, "Oh, I'm practically embarrassed of that." Then go ahead, do your woo dance, because you should be proud of
Woo!
where you are.
Exactly.
I forgot there was one
Exactly.
more button press that was supposed to happen earlier, but close enough. So I have a I'll talk briefly. I have as much as I love to experiment and play with things, I have a like plethora of like redeems and different things that people can redeem and do on the channel, and I'm always playing around with like what can I do, what can I introduce that people can like interact with me. And I have to say there's one that I really want to share, and that is say hello. And so I made this at, if someone clicks the follow button, they get
What is
300.
this channel? I can't
Oh,
find your channel. I've been
this
looking
is
for it.
twitch.tv/Jem Kagawa.
So how do you spell that?
JemKegawa.
Okay.
And so if you click follow on someone's channel, you get 300 channel points, which I call confetti. And I made this redeem that costs 300 confetti. So that way, when someone clicks follow, Twitch will say, why don't you do this with your 300 points? And it's called the say hello. And I literally recorded this like hello for people in the world to like come in and just like get something fun out of saying hello. And it goes a little something like this.
I love
So it's
that.
like, let's do some fun things. And I just like recorded this like three of me on a green screen, and I just pop up the three of me and just like, trio of hellos. But I've got all kinds of things from like changing colors to like water floating in. Actually, the water is great. I'm a little thirsty. I could do some water. So I'm literally just like redeeming things on my channel. And because I am going through, because I'm going through like my OBS environment, you see anything from Twitch pop-ups. So let me go ahead and redeem a hydrate.
Oh,
This is what I call the wolf den water. It's this little thing here. It's
I love
literally
that
an
it
old
has the
Scotch
nozzle.
bottle that's now a wolf. But yeah, it just comes in all angelic like to just bless me with hydrates. And I put this one of the caps on it so that I can just
I love that.
get a quick
I
drink
used
of
to have this
water.
big Magnum bottle. It was like a Magnum bottle, like one of those really big bottles of wine you'd buy.
Yes.
So it's super big. It's like the size of your torso, and I scraped all the wrapping off of it or whatever, and that's what I used as a water bottle for like probably like 4 or 5 months, like all summer. And then I took it, and I think it was like freshman or sophomore year of when I was going to A&M, and I kid you not, it was like the first week of moving in with my roommates. Um, I put it in. It was in a real precarious spot, just like right in the front, and it was our fridge was packed. It was in the house, and there was like five of us in there, so the fridge couldn't have been more packed. And I kid you not, like week one, Alex reached in there to grab something, and this bottle falls and just breaks,
Oh.
and it
Yeah.
was like the biggest L that I've ever taken because there's
Oh.
something about drinking water out of a glass that there's just nothing compared to it.
Yeah.
Like, and I bet if you chilled that bottle, it would be. It's just the definition of luxury. That's all it is.
Yes. Now I will say I like scotch, and I've got like four of these bottles. So if this one broke, I still have a couple more wolves to go. But yeah, no. So oh man, this
You're big on
this
the
has been a
wolves,
lot of
aren't
fun.
you?
I'm glad you introduced me to this. But yeah, with the media business, I'm gonna come back to our older story there and
Okay.
just say that yeah. So that at
Oh
that
my.
point, what?
Yeah.
I know
I
we'll
just
probably
noticed that
wrap
time.
up here soon. I know,
Okay. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. No worries.
This has
No
been
worries at
this has
all.
been great though. But yeah, so at that point I decided, okay, at this point the business has enough that I can do jobs for people. And I know after a year and a half plus a year and a half of YouTube plus an extra year of just photoing things, that I know I love this. Like I'm going to keep doing it. So then I just started going at it, marketing myself, being confident, and just doing the best that I can. I've got these oh, I should show you some of these overlays. So now at this point, like honestly, YouTube and Twitch, people may or may not realize this, but they are playgrounds for me to learn to use the stuff I've got. I think that's always one of the important things. It's like whatever you have, make sure you use it to its fullest. Don't buy something else to solve your problems until you know the stuff you have can't solve your problems. And so like there are places where I just play around with it. Oh, I don't think I have the media for it. Okay, I'm not gonna be able to show you what I
Oh
was just
my
gonna try to show, but
gosh.
yeah, I do logo animations, and literally during stream one day I was like, I had this idea for about 8 to 10 months ago, where it's like, wait a moment, streams are mine, and I don't care as much about growth as like growth of viewers as growth of me. So I'm going to use streams for the equivalent of doing my homework while also having fun with people. So I started doing stuff like, let me make the animations I know I need for my own streams and the stuff that I do during streams. Like, instead of just playing video games on streams, because I think that's what people want to see. I'll play a video game if I really want to play a video game, but let's do things. And that's where I've got, oh, I have the canvas paintings in the other room. I bought this like pack of 3 inch by 3 inch canvases, and I'll literally just do a painting during the stream. And then like Pride Month every year, I do a
It's a good
painting. I've
idea.
started doing like a love, like a rainbow in the background, and I draw out love, or I'll do like these other pride flag kind of 3 inch paintings and then give them away to someone. I'll run a giveaway, and like two people can win a painting that I painted that month. And those have been like really fun ways to get into it. Right now, I'd say Twitch for me, I only stream once a month, so it makes a lot less. It maybe makes $200 a year or so for me,
That's a
two to
lot
three
more than I
hundred.
thought it was gonna be.
Oh yeah. Last year I
Honestly.
went for viewers and I went for the content for people. And I think even in the first year of Twitch, I started Twitch December 2020. So I'm about a year and a half into it. But the first year, I was focused way more on viewers and viewer growth. And I think it made like 400, which for the first year, I was like, that's great. That makes me feel really good. But then I realized I made 400 that year on Twitch, but like the one video job I did 3 weeks ago for 2 days plus 2 days of editing was 2,000. And I was like, oh yeah, I gotta remember what's important. And the media business is the focus for the financial growth, and the streams are the focus for just having some fun with the people that want to be there. So my streams and my YouTube have never been about, well, I shouldn't say never. There's been times, but they're typically not about me growing the stream. It's about, I want to grow myself, but I am going to put in the effort to have some fun with the people that show up. Like if you show up to my stream where I'm trying to grow and learn something, I want to make it worth your while. So I typically want people to have a good time while they're there. And so
Yeah, absolutely.
I created a new layout, and it looks a little something like this. And this layout was like, specifically, I built this Sunday afternoon for the Sunday night DJ stream. Like a lot of the streams, I put about an hour, 1 to 3 hours into most streams that I build. And this one I loved because I had these like super cool, like, what do you call them, video
Yeah.
DJ loops. And
This one
so like
reminds me of
depending, uh
sorry, Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix. This kind of has that
I've
kind of
never heard
vibe.
of
Have
that
you
one.
seen it?
No.
What?
What?
Whoa, dude! Wow, I can't believe I'm about to put you on. Love, Death, and Robots is an animated show on Netflix where each episode is totally unique. The animation style is totally unique. The story is totally different. Characters, plot, uh, everything. I mean, each episode is like a completely different series, and it's kind of like, um, it's almost ineffable. I can't even describe it. It's it's very cool.
Love,
And
Death,
if
and Robots?
Love, Death, and Robots on Netflix. Some of the episodes are phenomenal. Some of them you're probably going to just, not that great. But it's kind of like, it's just very interesting. Oh, I forgot this was the
Yeah.
original scene. I got used to the other one.
Well,
Um,
I mean, I can
yeah,
always
it's
change
very
this around
cool.
depending on what we want. I use the Stream Deck, which is this thing. It lets you
Yeah, Bud's got one of
control all
these. Yeah.
kinds of stuff from them. Yeah, these are fantastic. That I actually have up in the bottom right corner. I've got like a couple buttons that are just like launching programs and doing just like shortcut type things. Like let me just macro some of the things that I do all the time, so that way they're just quick key presses for mostly like client work and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh, dude, I've got this mouse. Bud, I think he sold me this mouse for like $20 or something. Um, but it was because he's a gamer and he needs the scroll wheel or whatever, which I literally never press the scroll wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think I've ever pressed that button in my life. Like press down on the scroll mouse wheel. But it's one of these bad boys, and So
Mm-hmm.
this thing has got what has it got? It's got two buttons here. One, two, three, four, five. It's got these trigger things on your knuckles that you can actually
Mm-hmm.
pull up on. So it's got one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10. It's got 10 buttons on it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I don't use this anymore because that's for my Windows computer. But I'm like when I was like doing a lot of work on my Windows machine, basically I could cut, copy, paste, switch tabs, close tabs, reload tab. I had all the things just on my little mouse. I was doing this number, and it
Yes.
was like it felt so cool just to be able to
Oh,
just knock them all
macros on
out.
mouse buttons are great.
They're
You
sick.
know what?
They're so
I
sick.
never really got into macros on keyboards. Funny enough, I've had some really fancy keyboards, and I never like all the macros I had on keyboards were typically to change like the lighting on the keyboards, like to change
Are you
things in the
on
keyboards.
Mac or PC?
I've always been Mac.
Oh,
I'm sorry,
gross.
PC. I've always been PC. I've
Oh,
never
that's what. Yeah.
the only Macs I've owned have been like to learn more about the Mac ecosystem, because I did desktop support and I did that like hardware repair company for a while. And so I needed to know enough about Macs to be helpful and useful to people.
They're the
Um,
best.
but yeah, I'm all PC. Like, I'm gonna try to switch to this one, but this camera can be finicky. So if it cuts out, we'll just cut it. But yeah, like even in front of me are two. Oh, there it goes. I tried.
Oh, is
Uh,
that? Oh,
hmm,
no worries.
I'm gonna reset this one. Let me see. Give me just a moment. I'll reset it. This can't. The problem with this camera is so I've played around with a lot of cameras. Part of that is also trying to help other people. Oh come on. I may have killed this camera. This
You're
is
killing it.
an $8 camera. Um, I have like 6 webcams, and this one works really well as long as it might literally be like
Yeah,
gone
there's the
forever.
delay.
Give me a moment.
The
Let me try
delay has been
again.
introduced.
Yeah, I'm gonna try this one more time, and if I don't get it,
No
then
worries.
yeah, I'm not gonna get it. Sorry. So yeah, this camera is an $8 camera. I bought two of them, thinking, you know what, I'll give it a try. As long as you don't have to like move them, they are fantastic. But as soon as you move them, they have like the jankiest like USB plug on the back. It just cuts out and then it
Yeah.
won't come back until you like restart your computer. So I use them for like I've got one in the ceiling of my studio and another one I'm like attached to the wall. I love camera angles. I actually in my main studio setup I have 6 camera angles. Sometimes I run multiple of them at the same time. Sometimes I'll run other things, but like, and sometimes I'll just run one or two of them. But I mean, it's the way I see it, especially post COVID. Like where a lot of people are remote, a lot of people working from home. We used to be able to go
Remote.
in a
Oh my
space and
God,
just
remote.
explore that space. Now you get to see whatever I choose to show you of my space, and I get to see what you choose to show me. So if that's the case, and I want you to know what it's like to be where I am, let me get some cameras. I'll get a camera that shows what it looks like to look where I am. I'll get a camera to look what happens if you walk over there. What does it look like if I do a wide angle or zoom right in my face? Like what do I want you to experience where you've moved in this space? And yeah, actually, I have a button that on this computer it's not set up, but on a
Hit that
desktop it
button.
is. It literally
Oh.
like zooms in on this like super close box of my face. It's almost uncomfortable, and that's what I love about it.
I love it. I love
So
it.
yeah. So anyway, let me
Oh.
finish off the media story business with
Okay.
a
Yeah. 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 Please do. Please do.
I just started growing it, started like doing jobs. I would capture like a lot of it was like me thinking, what do I want to do next? What do I still want to do that I haven't done? To figure out, let me explore a lot of areas. The first 2 years was a lot about let me explore different areas. I think one of the super fun stories was I had never captured like a live band, and I found a gig that I could do that. And I was like, I haven't really done a lot of this before, so I'll give you a good rate for it. And they were like, we don't usually pay a ton, but we don't have any good promo videos, and we've seen your like production work, and it's been good in the past. So we agreed on like $400. And I go to this bar and I just borrow like 4 GoPros. I have a camera on a tripod. I had the camera I was actually moving around. And then I had a buddy of mine that was looking to get more work with me. And he was like, I actually really don't want paid. I just want to see if I like working with you and if I like doing this kind of thing. Cause I haven't done a lot of video. I've mostly done photo. But he had like a fantastic camera. Great example of I'm going to spend a ton of money because I can, and then I don't know what to do with it. So, so I shoot this band, and I've got like shot like right up the guitar, like from the side of the keyboard, like above the drummer, and a tripod shot. And it was just so much fun. And I ended up shooting, we shot their whole thing. I told the other guy, don't get up on stage because I know you haven't done a lot of shooting. Just stay like around the crowd, but mostly like these areas so you're not like in their face. And he's like, that sounds great to me. And so he captures like a steady shot moving around, getting some cool stuff. And then I do some stage stuff. And one of the shots, I end up being in the camera from the drummer. You see me off to the side, but I wore black, so I kind of hid in the shadows. So it was fantastic. Um,
Nice.
and made a promo video for them that was like a lot of fun, lots of camera angles. And that was one of the things that like I don't want to shoot live events as much, but it was a really good experience and one of those like, what is it like to like, how do I
Exactly.
make it feel like you can feel like you're there and there's motion and energy and excitement. And so I shot all these different kinds of things, found out what I really love, and now I'm at that point of like, let me grow with clients in the areas I love, which tend to be government and corporate work, largely like event coverage, like corporate event coverage, and like speakers, like having speakers come out to the space, recording them, doing their presentations. One of the things that I love about this is actually nothing to do with any camera skills. It's that I can have a speaker come in and I can help put them at ease. I've had people tell me that they get in front of a camera and they get so nervous, but when
Yeah.
I'm running the camera and I'm working with them, they feel they feel better about it and they come away from the experience like that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And that's a really good compliment. It's something that like I'm really glad I could make that I could ease your I put thought into it. Like here's a chair, here's a glass of water over here. There's no stress here. You don't have to worry about getting everything perfect. You know what? Look at me. I've got a camera like right behind my shoulder. Look at me while we start, and then we'll transition to looking at the camera when we get comfortable with it. Like just those kinds of like little thoughts, or like someone like needed to stare at their PowerPoint and I made the screen a little smaller and I had like this boom arm that was like like massive metal C-stand kind of thing with a camera like just positioned right behind the monitor just off to the side. I think at the time it was bottom because of the way they looked at it, and like they could look at their PowerPoint instead of the camera, but it looked like they were looking at the crowd. And so like stuff like that is I think what I really
Whoa.
like.
Yeah, well, there's, I mean, so something that I admire about you is you're very honest and personable, and you just really kind of create a good kind of like just a situation, and you're kind of fun with it too. So it's not, oh, it's not so serious, or it's like, no, we're just gonna do our thing, and it'll be fun, and maybe something about the camera that's like so weird is that the camera is everything that you're not. The camera is cold and it's still and it stares and it doesn't
Yeah.
move, and it's just always like it's just there, and it kind of just reflects your own kind of insecurities on you, which a real person doesn't, and which you don't also. And so I don't, there's just something about like a lot of people don't like coming on to like a podcast, even though it literally is a conversation. There's nothing
Oh,
special about it. It's not really anything different. And maybe it's kind of weird because for the first time now we're recording when every other time we've talked we weren't recording,
yeah.
but it's like
There's
it doesn't need to
absolutely
be.
something to hitting that record button that really makes someone nervous. I
Yeah.
remember my first vlogs where I sat in something just like what I've got now with you, except there wasn't even you talking back to me, where I've got a camera on a tripod. And if I had this little webcam, I'd point at it. And it's literally, you're right. It's cold. It stares at me. There's nothing
There's no
interacting there.
feedback. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I look into this and I know that it's recording. and I have to act like I'm interacting with a human, like I care about what's on the other side of that. And I think one of the things that really helps is understanding what's on the other side of that and what this is, and learning that you're interacting with someone, but you're not interacting with them live. And that takes practice. I remember my first videos, my first vlogs. That one I mentioned, Star Wars Waffles, the bloopers are incredible these days to me. I kept every bit of footage and I absolutely treasure and love it. My first vlog, I went to it, and it wasn't until this moment that I realized, even loving cameras and editing and the process, how much this is a skill that needs practice as much as anything. I would look at the camera for a while, and I'd be thinking about what I want to say and everything, and I'd be like, okay, I'm ready. We're gonna do this. Do I look good? Is my shirt right? Is the lighting good?
How's
Okay,
my hair doing? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Okay,
think we're
okay.
all
Yeah,
good. And then I'd reach
perfect.
over and I'd push the record button
Nothing.
and I'd stare at the camera. And I'd take some deep breaths and I'd get ready and literally a minute and a half stare at the camera and then say something. like it's like it's almost like the permanence of being recorded is daunting. I don't know exactly how to put it, but
I
you
mean,
have to learn that it's okay not to be perfect, even if it's recorded.
yeah. Dude, and the thing is that like you're the same person on the camera that you're off the camera. And so like something that I like one of the things I'm working on is kind of just getting used to myself, right? Because editing myself, this is why I don't edit any of these videos. If you'd like this to be edited, just reach out and we can kind of cut and chop or whatever. Um, but editing is like this is a skill that I'm not ready to adopt yet. I'm still trying to learn camera kind of situations and kind of make this more like ideally you would interact in a way where the camera just goes away. It would just become completely invisible, and the vibe. And I think that maybe if we were in person and the camera was like off to the side, then it would be a totally different ball game. This is something that I really want to experiment with is doing this, but like more in a personal setting.
Oh yeah.
But
Video
there's just
vlogs
something,
when you can have the two of you in the same space and
yeah,
like two cameras sitting over people's shoulders is exactly where you want to be. Because then, even if you are good at talking to a camera, your guest feels so much more comfortable that way because they can look at you.
right. And they
But
can
yeah,
forget about the camera, you know.
yeah. But yeah, I'd say the only reason I feel relatively comfortable on cameras is because I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours in front of a camera, like not
It's a
and like I
skill.
said earlier, not just practicing in front of a camera, purposefully practicing toward getting better. And so it's not just talking to a camera. It's a here's the things that I want to get better at. Here's the things I'm going to try this time. And every time it's like,
Interesting.
what can I do to learn? And there's always something to learn, no matter what you're in. There's always the next thing to get better at.
Absolutely. I think that is honestly just a phenomenal place for us to kind of end this off on. Christopher, if there's anything you want to plug, any YouTube channels, Twitch, now is just a phenomenal time for that. Maybe you got 30 seconds or whatever. Just go ahead and get some plugs, and then after, I'm gonna stop the recording and just hang on for a second, and then I'll get you out of here.
That sounds beautiful. Well, thanks so much for having me today. I really appreciated it. This was a lot of fun. I actually, with the chaos of everything that's going on in my life this past couple weeks, this was actually a really welcome event. Like it was great to just talk with you and chat about my story, hear a little bit more about you and connect a little bit here. I will say I'm definitely like I'm Jem Kagawa pretty much everywhere. JemKegawa. But the one place I'm actually going to plug for this one is if you want to see more of my photos, more of my videos, and some of the stuff that I've done, my business is Just Enjoy Media. Jem, Justemmedia. So Just Enjoy Media. So think Jem. But yeah, you can find
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
interesting. Very cool. I like it.
But yeah, so I've got some of my photos over there. I'm still working to put more video type stuff up there, but feel free to take a look. I've got some of my it's pretty much everything on there was just stuff I threw up from the last year just to kind of get a placeholder up there. But that's the business I've been running. Feel free to stop by twitch.tv/JemKagawa. Say hi sometime. And it would be great to see you. Hit that little redeem for say hello. The three of me popping up in the corner. It's fun for you. It brings me great joy every single time.
Excellent.
So anyway,
Alrighty.
yep, that is it. Thanks so much for having me today.
All right. Thanks so much. And then Christopher, just hold on for 1 second. I want to go ahead and stop this, and I'll see you in just a second.